Welcome back to America's Voice Now. We're talking this morning about the manifestations of everything that has operating outside the boundaries of what even the most liberal mind would construe. And we're evaluating so that we understand the full depths of what's going on in our nation today. How convoluted and twisted everything that you're being told is. And so we're going to talk this morning about another massive betrayal of the American trust. Our four segments this morning were Syria, a new misdirection, a new flag thrown up to draw our attention away from the IRS scandal and the debacle, the treason of the NSA and this administration, the abuses of Benghazi and the treason against our country and the world in general, where 400 missiles are missing and in the hands of terrorist extremists, real terrorist extremists, not the kind that they're classifying as, Americans who are just marching around with a flag and handing out pocket constitutions. I mean, please, you got to be kidding me. You don't draw a line or a distinction between those two? Shameful. But the Obama administration, and that was in our last segment, the DOD extremism and how they're classifying the founders as terrorists and proclaiming that anyone who believes in the rule of law and in the Constitution is effectively a terrorist. There's a video that was tied to that, and I encourage you to go see it. You can find it at our website at americasvoicenow.org, and you can find it on facebook.com/americasvoicenow. You can also find it directly on InfoWars. And I got to tell you, when you listen to this guy who's running this class, he is standing out there, and he's almost religious in his zeal. Listen to it because it's terrifying. And it will show you the depths to which, we have sunk. So here now we have an example that the Obama administration adds to the list of illegal immigrants not to deport. Parents. How wide a net can you cast, Mr. President? The Obama administration issued a policy late last week telling immigration agents to try not to arrest and deport illegal immigrant parents of minor children. A move that adds to the categories of people the administration is trying not to deport. This is a Washington Times article. In a 9-page memo issued Friday, for the record, by the way, our entire Constitution was written in 16 pages. The U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement said agents should use, quote, prosecutorial discretion. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the hallmark of a tyrant. Prosecutorial discretion is diametrically opposed to the rule of law. We call for prosecutorial discretion on the parts of, constitutional sheriffs and law enforcement today by saying when you pull over somebody who, you catch some kid with a joint, or, it's somebody who is a mother who's got 4 kids in the back of the car and she neglected to put on her blinker, don't write her a ticket. Use prosecutorial discretion in that regard. But you see, the concept of using prosecutorial discretion to be constitutional, and the concept of using prosecutorial discretion to violate the rule of law of the land regarding something which we know to be breaking down the rule of law across our nation as a whole, and especially in the line of immigration, are two completely different things. And the truth of the matter is, if we lived under a constitutional framework, we wouldn't have to have prosecutorial discretion. You know why? Because first and foremost, a crime without a victim is not a crime. Secondarily, law enforcement departments would not be bothering to pull you over for, kids screaming in the back and you forgetting to turn on your blinker. because they would have true either crime to pursue or they wouldn't be in business. You wouldn't need them. And they wouldn't be scrambling around looking for revenue to constantly grow the force or pay for their militarization. See, that's the result, the end result of a true constitutional government. Federal government in a microscopic, I mean, you got to have an electron microscope to find them how they affect your life, and a state government that is miniature to the point where you need a magnifying glass to find it in your life, and then local government that is not much bigger. It can be seen with the naked eye, but you really got to look for its involvement in your life. The rest of it is entirely up to you. That, ladies and gentlemen, is what is the freedom that America is desperate for, to return to. Stop interfering in our lives. Get out of our cars. Get out of our kitchens. Get out of our bedrooms. Get out of our refrigerators. Get out of our marriages. Get out of our workplaces. We don't need it. We don't want it. And we don't want the guaranteed dependency that it builds. You, on the other hand, do. And that tells me that government has a nefarious goal at hand. This 9-page memo says agents should use prosecutorial discretion to try to avoid detaining parents. And if they are detained, agents should make sure that they have the ability to visit with their children or participate in family court proceedings. Hey, I'm all for giving them access to their kids. You should never separate a parent from their children, even if they are all illegal aliens coming across the border. That's unconscionable. If that's what they're doing, a family comes across, they catch a husband and a wife and 2 kids or whatever, and they separate those parents and they separate them from their children, that is a human crime. That's a crime against humanity. And it's a crime against those children in specificity, because children separated from their parents naturally are terrified. And I don't care how resilient you tell me kids are, that's a scar that will never go away. So if they do catch a family coming across the border, that family should be detained as a family. They should be ejected as a family, but they should be detained until the decision is made to eject them as a family. The move won praise from immigrant groups. No kidding. Gee whiz. But a top Republican is blasting the memo as another effort by the Obama administration to circumvent the law. This is Bob Goodlatte from the Judiciary Committee. He's the chairman, and he's a Republican out of Virginia. Here's what he says. President Obama has once again abused his authority and unilaterally refused to enforce our current immigration laws by directing U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents to stop removing broad categories of unlawful immigrants. Do you know what the primary function and the primary role of a president is? Let's hark back to our Constitution. What is the number one function of a president? To execute faithfully the laws of the United States of America. If you can't follow rule number 1, then the rest of them don't even have to be brought up. It goes without saying. You see, where this president has gone, no other president has ever gone before. And the dictatorial and authoritarian manner and method and purpose under which he is utilizing his executive authority and abusing it is so over the top, so outrageous, that it falls within the category of treason, because he is violating his oath of office. His oath of office says that I will uphold the laws of the United States of America, and I will defend her against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Well, by this action, by that statement, and the dozens of other executive orders he's utilized that violate the rule of law, he's exposed himself for the traitor that he is, by his own admission. And a traitor is one who violates their oath of office. A traitor is one who acts against the best interest of the nation to which he owes an allegiance. And that, ladies and gentlemen, identifies and exemplifies this president. It exemplifies others, including Bush and Bush Sr. and Clinton, and you can go on down the line. Jimmy Carter, even Reagan. I know the Republicans are going to have kittens pulling their hair out. What do you mean, Reagan? Let me tell you something. We haven't had a president in the United States since 1900 that wasn't a traitor. And maybe not even before that, short of the first 4 or 5 or 6 we had. It started with Adams. The Alien and Sedition Act, or lest you forget. The Sedition Act, which imprisoned the Americans, was an act of treason. Make no mistake about it. In fact, it was such an act of treason that Jefferson and Madison were the first to jump up and stand up and say, any law passed by a Congress or a president that operates outside the Constitution is no law at all, but it is null and void on its face. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is exactly the situation we're in now. Let me tell you, it didn't take long for treason to put its icy fingers around the throat of a constitutional republic. 1798. Wasn't 7 or 8 years. Was it? And here we are 237 years later, and they've only had 230 years to grow the extent of the treason, of the tyranny, of the betrayal. What we do know is this. Our border is as porous as a sieve, a colander. What we do know is that in order to protect the United States of America and follow the rule of law, which is the president's function, his sole function, to execute faithfully the laws of the United States of America, and to defend this Constitution and this nation from all threat, both foreign and domestic, we know that this is a president who is operating outside the boundaries of what anyone would construe to be a true constitutional republic. We don't know how many people coming across the border are simply folks looking for food and a job, or how many are not. Now, I hurl that out there because we know for a fact that Border Security and Border Patrol has come back to us and repeatedly stated that they are catching people coming across the border of Middle Eastern descent who are pretending to be Mexicans. They are pretending, they are categorizing themselves as such, and they are working to make their physical appearance look to be that of an ordinary Mexican who's just coming across looking to pick tomatoes. And how many of those are getting through? We don't know. They want to politicize this issue. America just wants the rule of law applied. And we want our border sealed. That, I'm telling you right now, is a universal, almost unanimous approach from every American. Even those who believe in immigration. If you say to them, if the borders were sealed and immigration as a policy was fixed to allow the influx of immigrants, but not with all of these, crazy restrictions on it. In other words, you see, that's the problem. They keep throwing out this thing about immigration and how it needs to be fixed by allowing wide open borders. But the truth of the matter is, you can fix it by fixing the existing law that's in there. Open it up. Stop squeezing it down to whatever the heck it is, 50 or 100,000 a year. That's an easy change to an existing law. It doesn't require the wholesale adjustment and the wholesale amnesty of all of the illegals who have poured over our borders for the last 100 years. That's the hidden kernel of truth. And that's the one thing that you will not see the mainstream Ministry of Propaganda nor any of these other immigration pundits talk about. Why? Why won't they talk about, in order for we don't need comprehensive reform. It's simple. Go in and tweak the dang law. Open it up. Say, if you apply, we will have so many slots open annually. And if you apply, you'll get in line, and we're going to expand the number that can apply. Hey, guys, that solves the whole problem. Now, I mean, every nation has to have a limitation on how many you can accept. So we can't just open the doors wide open and say it's unlimited application. But, you know, I don't know what the total number is that we do accept. I guess I should have done the research on this to expose this. But, you know, the total number that are allowed in is so limited that's why they say it's too hard to apply the right way because I got to wait 7 or 8 years. Okay, so let's shorten that wait. Let's expand the total number that are allowed. I'm okay with that. But you see, I'm not okay with that unless you simultaneously lock down the border. And you have a plan to deal with and it's not 11.5 million. They've been telling us this number of 11.5 million since the days of Reagan. Are you trying to tell me that the number that come across the border and the number who die here are equal? I don't buy it. I don't believe it. It's not true. The number is vastly more significant than that. There is no way that we have the same number, 11.5 million, in the nation now that we had back in the days of Reagan. And I can already hear the sycophants and the crazy kooks. It was only 8 million. Let me tell you, if you're going to try and tell me that in the last 40 years only 3.5 million more have come across, you're a liar, because we know that there's 400,000 or 500,000 a year that we catch. So how many more do we know that we didn't get? You see, and we know from Border Patrol's own statement that they are getting the minority, not the majority, who are coming across. So I'm not fooled for a moment. You shouldn't be either. This number isn't 11.5 million. It's probably closer to about 25 or 30 million. And that's the real truth. And then to make matters worse, Sebelius, this one's unbelievable. Sebelius comes out and she says that what we should be doing is allowing the immigration to come through so that we can help them to help pay for Obamacare. But you see, what they're telling you is, and it doesn't even hold water. If you just look below the surface of what their treasonous statement is, you'll know that it's a lie. Because, first of all, they say on one hand, illegals won't be able to take advantage of Obamacare. Okay, then you can't legally charge them. Tax them for it. Right? I mean, you can't tax them for it and then not give them access to the service. So, why would you think that allowing 25 million illegals is going to improve the circumstances of Obamacare? All it's going to do, they already get free access to services. And they're not getting it through Obamacare. And so once they come out of the shadows, that number is going to get even worse, because those who didn't seek medical help for conditions before, or figured out a way to pay for it themselves, or went back over the border to get it back in Mexico and then came back again because they didn't want to get caught and deported, those people are then going to open themselves, or they're, and you see, they're going to basically come back and say, okay, so now that I'm legal here and I'm registered as and even if it takes me 7 or 15 or 50 years to become the citizen, now I have access to free and open health care, and I don't have to hide in the shadows anymore. So then they're going to pour out into the gates of the hospitals and the clinics and this, and we're still going to end up paying for it all. Obamacare will have solved nothing. And Sebelius' own statement is that it's really for about 15 million Americans who are uninsured. Okay, guess what? We already know, based on the numbers that have come out over the last couple of months, that we are forcing 30 million to become uninsured because their companies are dropping them. So explain that to me. To save 15 million who have no insurance, we're going to uninsure 30 million more and charge everyone tens of thousands of dollars in excess penalties and fines and increases in their premiums. It is unjustifiable. It is indefensible. It is illegal. It is abusive. It is dictatorial. It is terroristic. And that, ladies and gentlemen, sums up this administration in a nutshell. We now are under the control of a terrorist who has an unimaginable power, capabilities, assets, and literally functions and capabilities which we are not even remotely knowledgeable of. This talk about the NSA and, exposing and all of that. Let me tell you something, guys. We don't even have an idea of what the tip of that iceberg looks like. Not even close. Not even close. Where we are today is so far down the rabbit hole that we are at this point virtually unable to preserve the United States as a nation on the rule of law with the embedded corruption of the cancer that is Washington, D.C. and all its lobbyists. By the way, I posted an article this morning up, and I don't want you to miss it, that the people who wrote Obamacare are the same lobbyists who are profiting. And I mean, when I'm talking about profiting, you guys have no idea what we're talking about. We're not talking about a few 100,000 here and a few. We're talking about tens and hundreds and billions of dollars, tens and hundreds of millions and billions upon billions of dollars are pouring into the private coffers of these traders who wrote Obamacare and are now profiting as a result of it. That is crony corporatism and capitalism defined. And that is the hallmark of fascism. Make no mistake about it. The definition, when you look up fascism in the dictionary, you see an image that shows a picture of Obama, shows a picture of this NSA, shows a picture of this administration, and unfortunately, now, the flag of the United States of America. Where we are is dire. And I'm not some extremist who's espousing that I have got the solution, that I've got some kind of messianic complex, that only I hear from God, straight from God's lips to my ear, and I'm the only one who can show the way. I decry that argument, and I say, in truth, you, as an individual, have the wherewithal and the ability to take control of this country. You can understand the precepts and the concepts yourself. All you got to do is crack the Constitution. You got to crack the Declaration of Independence. You got to crack the Federalist Papers, the Anti-Federalist Papers, the writings of Jefferson, the writings of Madison, of Adams, of Washington. Read them for yourself, and you'll know I'm no false prophet. Read them for yourself, and you'll know the truth of America, and your course will be clear. You're listening to America's Voice Now. Thanks for joining with us this morning. We'll be back tomorrow morning bright and early. You can find us at americasvoicenow.org. You can find this and every other program at youtube.com/America's Voice Now. And you can also find us at facebook.com/America's Voice Now. Have a wonderful day. Make sure that you are doing your part to restore this nation to a constitutional republic. Educate, educate, educate.